Hi, so let's try and solve this challenge. It says pillars, and it says there are pillars near the road. The distance between the pillars is the same and the width of the pillars is the same. Your function accepts three arguments: 1, number of pillars, which should be greater or equals to 1; 2, distance between pillars, which is 10 to 30 meters; and 3, width of the pillar, which is 10 to 50 centimeters. So it says calculate the distance between the first and the last pillar in centimeters without the width of the first and the last pillar. So let's come here to solve that in JavaScript, and now we're given numpil as the number of pillars. Distance here is going to be the distance between the pillars if you have more than one pillar, and the width is the size or the width of the pillar in centimeters. So we have been told to get the distance between the first and the last pillar. So first of all, we have to consider that when we have one pillar, there isn't any distance between any pillar, because one pillar you can't have anything between that. But when you have two pillars, then there is you can now calculate the distance. So let's just solve this by saying return, and maybe we can use the ternary operator, and we'll say when we have one pillar, so numpil is 1. When we have one pillar, then we are going to return 0 as the distance between the first and last pillar. Else, then we can now consider the from when the scenario when we have two or more pillars. So if we have two pillars, then we know that there is only one distance between the two pillars. The same way, if we have three pillars, then there will be two distance. Like you have to consider the distance between the first and the second, and also the distance between the second and the third, and so forth. So what we can see is that there will be a -1 distance between the number of pillars. So to consider the pillar, because we are meant to find the distance between the pillar, so we have to calculate the number of pillar. So we'll say numpil, then we can say minus, now if we say -1, we are now saying where you have two pillars, then we are only considering one distance. So what do we multiply this by? We have to multiply it by the distance itself. So distance between the pillars we're given here is 10 to 30 meters, and if we are to convert that to centimeters, that means we'll multiply it by 100. So this is the distance here, so we're going to take that and we'll say multiplied by the distance, then times 100, because we want to convert it to centimeter. So with this, we've been able to get the distance between any number of pillars. That's the total distance. But we've been given another situation, a condition, where they said without the width of the first and the last pillar. So we're meant to take away the size or the width of the first and the last pillar. So to do that, we are going to find a way to take away the width of the pillars that we are going to be considering. And to do that, we are going to say minus in this way, then we are going to say 2 times the width of the pillar. So it means that this we are considering if we have two pillars, for instance, then we are going to subtract the width of the two pillars. But if we stop here, we're going to have a problem, because we need to also consider when we are going to have 3 or more pillars. So if we have 3 pillars, it means we need to still add the width of the pillar in the middle, because they said, the instruction said only the first and the last pillar width should be removed from the total sum. So we have to now add the number of pillars that we are going to be expecting. So what I mean is that if we put num_pil in this case and times, and we now add the width here that way, just like that. So what we've done here is that we have now said, okay, fine, we have 3 pillars, so num_pil is 3 and the width is the width of the pillars. So we have taken the width of the 3 pillars like this, and we are adding it now to the distance between the pillars, right? But we have also been told that we must remove the first and the last pillar width, so that is why we have here, so minus 2 times the width will take care of that. So we're now subtracting that from the sum of this one and that one. So if we are to refactor this, what we are meant to have is something like this. We'll have num_pil minus, we will just have width that way times num_pil minus 2, something like that. Yeah, so this is if we are to refactor that, that's what we've been able to get. So I believe this should take care of the challenge, because we found the total distance between the pillars, and now we've been able to consider the width of all the pillars, and we subtracted 2 of the first, we subtracted the first and the last pillar width. So let me test and see. So this pass, let me attempt, and that pass, so that's very good. So let's see if we can find a way to refactor this without doing it this way. So let me just see if I can do that. So what I will do instead is I will first of all consider the distance between the pillars. So we have num_pil minus, just like we did before, minus 1, and we are going to multiply that with the distance and convert it to centimeter. So distance times 100, and that way. So with this, we've considered the distance between the pillars. So now to refactor, we are going to add this now to get the exact number of pillars that are not part of the first and the last pillar, so we can just get their width. So to do that, we're going to say width that way, like we did before, times 1 pillar. For example, the width should be this one should give us 0. So what that means is num_pil, let's just take it that way, minus, and if we say num_pil minus 1, for example, and if num_pil is 1, 1 minus 1 is 0 times width is 0, so that will work now. But when we get to two pillars, and we are meant to also get 0 because we are not considering the first and the last pillar. So if we put this as 2, then this is going to be 2 minus 1, which is 1, and it will return the width, which will fail. So what we need to do then is we're going to make this 2, right? So if 2 minus 2 is 0, and times the width is 0, and that will pass now. But now we have a problem, because if we have 1 pillar, it will 1 pillar minus 2, which is minus 1, times width, and we're going to have a negative width. So what we may need to do here is to use the math. We'll use Math.max. So what that means is we are going to pass 2 values, and we'll say find the maximum of the 2 values. So in this case, I will put this num_pil minus 2 and 0. So what this is doing now is saying if we have num_pil as 1 and we have 1 minus 2, it will give minus 1. 0 is higher than minus 1, so it's going to pick 0, because it will pass the Math.max will pass this as 0. so which is what we want. So it will give us 0 minus width 0, which is fine. So this will also fail, remember, because if we have 1 minus 1, it will be 0, so it will return 0. So if we have 2, now it will be 2 minus 2, which will be 0, and 0 is 0 is the same thing, so it's going to fail, it's going to pass 2. So 0 times 2 is 0, and that's what we want. So instead it will only grab the distance between the two pillars, right? Now if we have 3 pillars, it will be 3 minus 2, which is 1. So the maximum will be 1, because 1 is higher than 0. So it will take 1 times the width, which will be the 1 width. So that's the pillar in the middle, because when we are considering 3 pillars, because we are leaving out the first and the last one. So this will pass, and the same way, if you pass 3 here, it will be 2 times distance, because we have 2 distance between the 3 pillars. So I think this will be able to solve that, and irrespective of the number of pillars we have, this is going to pass. So let's test. And it passed, attempt, and it passed. Very good. So let's see how we can solve this in Python. So for Python, we're just going to take the same approach, and what we did, like when we resolved out of JavaScript, we considered that when we have 1 pillar, definitely we will not have any distance, so we'll do the same thing. So we'll just say return. Then Python uses if else for when we're doing the ternary operator. So it will say return 0 if, and now we say num_pil, num_pil is 1, then else, and now we're going to actually do what we did before when we did that of JavaScript. So first of all, we consider the distance between the pillars. So we said num_pil minus 1, because we know that when we have, now we're considering for 2 or more pillars. So when we have 2 pillars, then this is going to be 2 minus 1, which is 1, and it will only consider 1 distance. So then we'll multiply this by the distance, which is going to be dist, and we have to convert that to centimeters, 100. So now we've been able to solve that of the distance, but now we also need to find a way to add that of the number of pillars. So in the same way we did when we said we consider all the numbers of pillars that we have, and we'll now consider taking away the first and the last pillar. So we'll just say the same thing, width this time times, and the num_pil, which is the number of pillars, _pil, that way, and then we're going to subtract the 2 pillars, the first and the last one. So we'll just do the same thing, 2 minus 2 times the width, that way. So now we said there is a common factor here, and that is the width is common here. So we're going to summarize this, and we're just going to say the width times num_pil minus 2, that way. So I think that one should do the job. Let's see. Test. Okay, it passed. Attempt, and good, it passed. So we're going to also see how we can use the max function method to see how we can make this refactored and make it easier. So let's see how that works. So first of all, like we considered, let me just take this all out. We first considered the distance, which is this. So the distance between any number of pillars, total distance. Then we are now going to consider the number of pillars in that case. So like we did before, let me take that out. we said when we have one pillar and we say number of pillar minus 1, when we have one pillar, it should actually return 0, because that's what we want, because remember we are removing the first and the last pillar. So if we have one pillar which is the first and the last at the same time, then we do not need to consider that, so that should give us 0. So this will pass, right? But if we have two pillars here now, so 2 minus 1 times the width, that's way. When we have two pillars now, what we have is 2 minus 1 is 1 times width, so width will be passed in, and we want width to be 0, so this time we'll make it 2, right? So 2 minus is 0, and this will pass because it won't go through, it will be 0. 0 is instead will be passed in. So if we now make this three pillars now, so 3 minus 2 is going to be 1, and that would send 1 back, that will send the width back, so we don't want that. So that's where we now use max, but in Python we just simply type max. It's not attached to the math module, so we are just going to do it that way, and max of this, and we say 0. So what this now has done is it's saying if it's one pillar, then this will be minus 1, max will be 0 taken, so 0 times width is 0, which is what we want. If it's two pillars, 2 minus 2 is 0, 0, 0 will be 0, that's what we want. If it's three pillars, 3 minus 2 will now be 1, 1 is taken because it's higher than 0, and that will be the width which will be passed, right? Because we are considering the pillar in the middle for 3 pillars. So this is basically how to resolve that using the math method in Python. So let's test, and that pass, and attempt, and that pass. So that is basically how to solve this challenge.